wonderful seeing all the faces of people who have come out of the woodwork today from those old community college, early SIAST days when we had university programs. So it's great to see you all here. My name's Connie Gerwing, just in case you don't know. Peter, Kalyn, and Dale Dooley. This whole...
Well, keep us away.
We will reserve the booze.
This whole little project got started because Peter went over to the new U of S building to check it out one day, and he, somebody, maybe Rob, I'm not sure.
It was Rob.
It was Rob. Okay, gave him a student handbook, and it had some history in it of the U of S in PA. And Peter read it and went, "This isn't right."
Not according to my limited memory.
So he told, next time we had breakfast together, he told me that story, and I said, "Well, Peter, this is a project that you could take on and research that." And come in. Yeah, come in. There's chairs over here. Thank you. This is a research project you could take on, and it's a good addition to the archives to have the whole story of how did university classes come to PA. So that's kind of how he started. Dale got dragged in because he sort of did the later part of that whole story, and I got dragged in because neither of them really can type very well.
I know that.
And they needed a good editor, especially Peter.
I was going to say, what's the English language?
I just did an interview with him, I can vouch for it.
Peter writes like a Ukrainian, as I've told him many times. He eliminates all the as and thes of the language.
Whenever I go anywhere and introduce myself, I always make it known I'm just a little Ukrainian boy from the farm.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the first few minutes of this. Do you need the lights on yet, Mike?
I should be good.
Okay.
I got you talking only.
Okay. So, university classes in PA actually got started in, next slide, 1879. Well, they weren't technically university classes then, but the Anglican Church established Emmanuel College in 1879. I put these pictures in because we have a great little collection of about half a dozen beautiful old pictures. So they got a charter in 1883 designating them as the University of Saskatchewan in the Northwest Territories. And that's looking, so does anybody here know where that was in PA? It's now where west and slightly south of the Pen. You know where St. Mary's Church is, and if you kind of go there and look up the hill, I think you can still see in the summer. Fred disappeared somewhere.
It's over the corner.
Oh, there it is, okay. You can still see kind of where it was.
That hill was actually knocked down by the penitentiary staff, and then they had to rebuild it when they put the gun range on there.
Okay, so that's where it was, the next one. So in 2021, Fred wrote an article in the Herald, and you can Google it if you do museum musings and Emmanuel College. There's a whole article of how that college got organized. I'm not going to go into those details.
And how the college is now in Saskatoon and
Yeah.
Emmanuel St.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's some more pictures. And that was around 1990. And one of the things that Fred talks about in this article is he aims to get rid of that old belief that somehow Prince Albert chose the penitentiary over the university. That was not how it happened. Unfortunately, the two things happened close in time, but it wasn't a choice of one over the other. The penitentiary or sorry, the college was here. It was a college, well, they didn't really call it the University of Saskatchewan, but still it was designated. In 1905, Saskatchewan became a province, and the provinces have control over education. So then, once it became a province, the province of Saskatchewan did not want to have it, or they wanted to choose where to put it themselves. So they had actually different places put in bids. And of course, it became Regina and Saskatoon were the bigger places at that time, and Saskatoon won out. And that was in, I think, 1907.
April 1909.
1909. The penitentiary was already designated to be here, I think, in
1907, I had land transfers from people in Prince Albert to the federal government for property for the penitentiary.
Right. So the pen happened before the whole university thing happened. They just kind of happened close in time, and
that's how myths get built.
yeah, pretty much. Okay, you can go ahead, Jerry. Just one quick note that again Fred dug up, and he's going to write a column on this whole thing. They actually had normal school here for teacher training, so there was some post-secondary education, sort of from just before World War I until about 1926 they had some classes. And so a period of time, and they would have them in schools that weren't full. So this particular one, I think, is in Pacey.
That's King George.
Or King George School, there you go. So there were normal schools, and we have a few pictures and a bit of information about it. So, I'm gonna let Peter take over here because the next time we had post-secondary education was somewhere in the 60s.
Do I need the speaker?
Yes.
Wow.
Don't
Don't argue?
No, don't argue.
Well, before I start in on the slide, Connie, you're so pushy. I just first want to let you know that I'm excited to be here and be part of this presentation. And there's a few thank yous that have to go out. One is of course to Rob Prosick, who threw out the challenge and said, you know what, if I had the material, I would have used it. And if there was someone that would do it, then we'd use it. So, being the type of guy that I am, a little bit like that fish in the lake, if I would have kept my mouth shut, I wouldn't have got caught. But anyways, it is what it is. Took up the challenge. Like to thank Dale and Connie for stepping up to the plate, and who have a much better memory than I do, who were willing to do some of the research, and for sure Connie, who was willing to do some of the editing and putting the document together. A huge thank you, I guess, to the people who took time out of their busy schedule to meet with me and help me with my memory. For sure, prime person was Sharon Kaniski and her daughter Judy Jackson, and Judy's here. They provided me with a number of Mel Kaniski's documents when he was manager of the adult basic education program and also principal. And I don't know, they must have file cabinets full of material, because there was loads of material, much too much for a boy like me to look through. So it was edited, some of it was used, and some I returned. But at least I made good on a promise to Sharon that we would actually use the material, because she had given it to another gentleman who took it and then just simply returned it. So made good on a promise there. For sure, Dave Kripp, who had an integral role in the university programming, who took time out to spend time with me from his organic farming. And I have another story for him later on. Chris Nemish. Chris and I had a little bit of a misunderstanding. I'm not very good at taking time either. We made an appointment to meet at Tim Hortons at, I thought it was at 3:30. It was for 3 o'clock. She waited half an hour, left. I came there at 3:30, couldn't find her. Anyways, she drove back into town and we got together. A side note of Chris Nemish was, she was a person that ran our night program on 15th Avenue and simply did an outstanding job of facilitating classrooms and setting them up and that whole university structure. And in a lot of cases, just did it out of commitment to the, sort of the college as the community as the college. So hats off to her. Jen Ward was another person, Larry Flattery was someone else. George Witter was someone else that I think Fred put me on to, and George was able to bring me up to speed on a lot of things. So I just want to commend the University of Saskatchewan for establishing a full-time campus here in Prince Albert, for the success that they've achieved to this point in time, and wishing them well in the future, and thanking them for building on what the regional college started here in the early 60s. So we'll go with that. In terms of the Prince Albert Technical High School, and I need to refer to notes, otherwise I'm going to ramble and we'll be here all day. Just to say this, that when the school was established, they took on a fine gentleman by the name of Lawrence Sparling in terms of being a vice principal of adult education. And Lorne and a gentleman by the name of Ross Homer, who was the principal at the time, not only did they establish adult education programs and bring university and set up the Prince Albert Regional Community College Association, but they also negotiated with the Department of Education and the University of Saskatchewan to allow journeyman carpenters, well, journeyman, period, to be placed on the teacher grid and be paid a teacher's salary. And so that really opened the door to a lot of journey people to teach in sort of motor mech, electrical, carpentry, and be, you know, at least be paid on a teacher scale. I think the proviso was that they had to take a university class during the summer, but it was significant in terms of the college movement, it was significant in terms of us being able to expand programming in Prince Albert. Let's see what else. So the people, you could please, yeah,
Should go to the next one.
next one.
Next one,
Yeah. Oh.
go back, Jerry.
Go back.
So tech opened in, yeah, so it opened in 1963. It had these adult programs. Because it was with the public school system and the regular school systems, they did focus in on negotiating with the University of Saskatchewan and starting with some university programs in education. And they also brought in agriculture courses because that was sort of Lawrence Sparling's bias. So they started with that. So we can, the other thing that it says new start in 1967. So in a prime thing that happened during this time as well was there was the Occupational Training Act established by the federal government, and what that did is it paid people to come to school. And Joe Lustig at the time was quick to latch onto that idea and said, well, we could really get things rolling here in Prince Albert in terms of adult education. And he agreed to have the school board become the banker for this system. And what it did for the Community College Association was it allowed them to sell seats to people like Canada Manpower, Indian Affairs, and the provincial government in terms of the non-registered Indian Métis program. And it allowed the college to charge these people a fee per seat and charge them so much for room rental, but in return the school board never really charged us much for room rental, so there was a little bit of a slush fund established that allowed the college system to do other things. So that was kind of the mover and the shaker for the whole system. Next one, please. So the first college was established in 1969. They came under the Societies Act. Lawrence Sparling became the principal. Bishop Short became the chairman of the board. And the board was made up of the various school boards that were here in the province.
Yeah, it's the first one in the province.
It was the first one in the province?
Yeah.
Okay. Help me.
Well, this to me struck me, I guess, when I was reading all this stuff, is that Prince Albert basically set up independently of anything a community college. And later, when the NDP government came in the early 70s somewhere, then they said, oh gee, this is a good idea, let's have some more of these. And they set them up in other places. But it was basically invented here. Maybe they modeled it after something else, but this was the first one in the province.
Yeah, so in my eyes, I call the movers and the shakers. So when the system was set up and the association was formed, what they created, well, you had Joe Lustig, who was really the financial person for the system. So he was kind of the controller. You had Lawrence Sparley was the idea person, and you had the Bishop Short, who was sort of the public relations arm of the system. So if there was a need to meet with the university, if there was a need to meet with a politician, if there was a need to do something publicly in Prince Albert, it would be Bishop Short who would stand up and deliver a very eloquent message. But behind the scenes, it was Lawrence Sparling and Joe Lustig. The thing that they did that really helped people like myself and Dale and other people who work in the system was they set up a system that had an association, a structure that had an association, had a council system, and had a board. So the association, you could belong to the association if you just had an interest in adult education and training in Prince Albertine area. You could belong to and you could elect 5 people to the council. The council consisted of people by invitation, and they were people who used the services of the community college. And so you had people like the Métis Society, you had people like reserve people who were using the services of the college. You had Department of Agriculture, those kind of people were on council. And then council people, I don't think at the time they were able to put people on the board. The board consisted of all the school boards that were in Prince Albertine area. But that structure allowed us to work from a community base, and we developed that model, the community is the college is the community. And the people that worked in that system embraced that model and were very committed to that and made work for people like me very, very easy. So, but it was that system, wow, I'll detract, I'll sway a little. So that base of support really assisted us when we were negotiating with government people primarily. And we called them the suits. So you had people like John Biss and Jake Katarna show up. And we always felt that we were secure to know that we had the support of the community on our backs to do what we were asking. And they were coming there from a Regina perspective and committees. They wanted to form committees. We weren't interested in that. We were interested in doing things. So, and we also had a tie in the department. Who was their boss was a fellow by the name of Lou Reeder. And Lou and Lawrence Sparling had very close connections. And so whatever they came and said to us, we took it with a grain of salt and basically told them they could, on the way out, they could close the door. Anyways, next. In 1974, Connie alluded to that. In 1973, I joined the community college system. I had been a consultant in adult education for the province and had the opportunity to either move to Regina or to La Ronge. And it wasn't that I joined the college, that's significant. It's the fact that when I joined the college board, the community college in Prince Albert inherited a territory that I had been responsible for. And it kind of went to Big River, and it went to Marceline, down to Rostern, down to Red Earth Shoal Lake. And not only did it inherit that territory, but it also inherited the programs that were offered in that area. And they too were sort of manpower programs and NRAM programs. And it gave the college just much more latitude to offer things. I could say in the early years, the university programs were on a very meager basis because the college itself was on dollars that were raised locally or that worked off the base of programs that Mel Karniski administered. It didn't really have any other sources of revenue. So whatever slush fund there was kind of, you had to have 12 students to offer a university program, and if you didn't, the program really didn't run. So they used some dollars for that, but it was a meager beginning. In 1974, when the government came in, they actually started to provide some money, and we also started to expand the programming. Carleton was completed in 74, 75. What Carleton did for us is provided us with a lot more space. Again, space that they really weren't, I can say it publicly, that they weren't charging us much for, or what they were charging us for was being paid for by pre-employment courses. And so university programs were offered there on a Monday evening or Saturday morning type basis. We had excellent cooperation from some of the staff there. Morley, you may have been one of the people that provided us with, at some point in time we moved into the sciences with science equipment and lab equipment. So that was kind of where it was at. Not much more I could say there. I could say that in 1976, oh God, that's a scary sight. Well, I have to comment on that picture.
Buddy Holly looked at
That's Buddy Holly. You can tell by Lauren's expression. Lauren was a very very logical thinker, very conservative in his approach to things. I'd say controlling in a positive way. I would say he had his hands full with both Mel and me. And he would have had his hands full with people like Bob Dowles, who was the financial guy, and also then later on was Bill Blake. So Lauren was kind of the thinking person in our group there. Mel was Mr. Cordiality, you can tell by his face. Person who he didn't like conflict, but ran an excellent program in adult basic education. That was his forte. Did excellent negotiations with Canada Manpower, with Indian Affairs, and the provincial government. So that's it. You can tell by, it's not really a Buddy Holly look, you can tell by the crusty look that I won't describe. People probably, you'd see my name on washroom walls, I'll put it that way.
Peter,
Yes,
Lawrence Sparling became principal of Carleton later.
okay.
He passed on to me that he had his hands full with you group.
I just was a boy from the farm, I didn't know any better.
You're dressed like Real City Slicker.
My wife dressed me to come here. I think it would be in 1974, I think. Well, I think, no, what was it? Lauren retired in 1978?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1978. So in 1979, Mel took over as principal. Mel had a much more relaxed, and again, no discredit to Lawrence Sparling. Simply an outstanding individual, simply a great person to work with, just a great guy. Mel a little more relaxed, more trusting, almost to a fault in some degrees, to trust a person like myself. Allowed us to sort of expand to a counseling center downtown, worked with the board. We set up a counseling center. We took on Dave Kripp as in a university role to some degree, but times changed, was much more relaxed, not as businesslike, but we still focused in on the dollars, still focused in on being successful in the community. It was in 1980, I'll put this caption in now, in 1981, the college thought it was to, I won't say avant-garde, but it was the in thing to do is to have an Aboriginal name. So we changed the Prince Albert Regional Community College to be Natnam Community College. And we were so proud of it because we understood from Cree that it meant outstanding in your field. And then we made a presentation in Larange, I believe it was, and they're Woodland Cree. And we said, well, we're from Natnam Community College, and they all started to laugh. And we thought, well, we looked at one another, we didn't know what the joke was. Well, I believe in Woodland Cree it means outhouse. So anyways, I was kind of, I believe in 1983, we went back to the Prince Albert Regional College. But also during this time with Mel that the university wasn't interested in maintaining the MLA card camp. And so with Mel's support and the board's support, we took on work with the MLA card camp and expanded the programming there, not only in terms of fine arts, but also into fiddle playing and other things that people were interested in doing at that campus. So again, expansion.
Oh, no, go back.
I can work with expansion.
Yeah.
So again, expansion at the college took place, as I mentioned before. We had the association, we had the council, we had a board that was very supportive of university training. I won't bore you with how the program grew and the stats from year to year. Just to say that in the latter years, the board did commit dollars to that program, anywhere from $16,000 to $25,000. And in those years, that was significant money. But they did do that. College home, so it gives you some stats there. Counseling center and tutoring expanded. I'm not sure when David Kripp came on board, but as the program expanded, we took on David as a counselor. I've never really seen a person in my life who became so embedded in the program and committed to the program as David. He lived that. That was sort of his deal, 7 days a week, 24/7. And he was very committed to the programs coming to Prince Albert, trying to find local instructors, negotiating with the university. I can say there was a nervousness in hiring David. He had this stupid idea when he was started out with us. He wanted to bottle water. He said they had fresh water, White Star, pure water. And we would mock him and laugh and like, who the hell is going to buy bottled water? Him and Lauren Haberstock and Ernie Trombley. They weren't just drinking too much beer. Lo and behold, people started to buy bottled water. And David went into organic farming. Then we had the counseling center, and George Durflock was the counselor. And I know that in about 1984, we came across this gifted individual. I thought he was gifted until today. He didn't try the door to come in here and was ringing the buzzer. But Dale Dooley. So Dale Dooley, you know when you hire someone, you're nervous. At least I was. You're not sure what the person might do. I know Dale was one of those kind of people that I liked because if he had something to tell you, he would tell you. There wasn't a gray area. Well-spoken and very committed to whatever he took on, and always did it extremely well. Little did I expect, and I should have, that he would expand that counseling center into sort of the center that it became and the hub that it became for university programming. The people that would seek him out, and Dale had the, I guess, the insight or foresight to hire people like Connie and Peter Laconi to help with the counseling center. And these people were simply amazing. They developed a video, they went into the high schools, they really talked up the program, and the program really took a significant step forward. I didn't have anything to do with it. I just stepped back and let it happen. So Dale, my hat goes off to you. As it does to David Kripp, with his stupid bottle idea, showed me, just kind of keep your mouth shut a little bit once in a while and just listen to people. So Dale, thank you for what the work you've done. And Connie, you too. So the programs did expand, and the rest is, I think, history. I know that, I'll just stop there because I think the next slide is U of R.
Yep. I'll
And,
talk about that unless you, because you didn't want to.
Yeah, all I could say is that Les Center and Venona, what's her name? Yeah, were, although they didn't start off in our facility, were tremendous supporters of university programming in Prince Albert. And I believe they were both members of our council or our association, and were great supporters of the college. So
I had a heck of a time. Rob gave me a little bit of stuff on the U of R, but we had a heck of a time finding anything on the U of R. Has anybody here taught for the U of R?
Well, I did some stuff with the School of Human Justice, but,
Yeah.
So
anyway, they did establish, it took me a while Dale had to find Les Center's name, because all I remembered was a skinny guy with cowboy boots. Something you may remember. I remembered skinny guy with cowboy boots, and Dale remembered his name. Anyway, so Les Center was brought here from the United States, and his wife Winona. And just as a little story, so after they retired, they moved to Saskatoon, and Les died in 2017. I got some of this actually from his obituary. And so I was researching this, and then I went back to searching his obituary again about 2 weeks later. So this is like 3-4 weeks ago. I just found some of this stuff. And I searched Center again, and Winona Center's obituary came up, and she had just died probably a month ago. About 2 days before I searched that obituary. So if any of you remember her, she was a sessional, I think, for both universities maybe, or maybe just the U of R, and did some other.
for us. She taught for
Okay, for U of S too. And then had lived in Saskatoon for the rest of her life. But anyway, so the U of R did have programs here, and they were in the building with the academic center, but they were never directly run through the college in the same way that the U of S was, and Athabasca classes were run directly managed by the college. The U of R always was separate. And as far as we know, there's no U of R in PA at all anymore.
David did run a few U of R computer science classes for a period of time.
Okay. Nancy Pardo taught some of those. She gave me a bit of information.
And
Okay.
that was under the same contractual
Yeah.
arrangement as with the U of
Okay.
S.
So Dale will kind of continue talking. So Prince Albert Regional College built a new addition to the building in 1987. And that's when some of the U of R moved in there, the U of S, and anyway, moved in there, so.
please go back, please.
Well,
So I can speak to some of it, that's merging with the college. Okay, so it was from 1980, I know in 1987, although the new facility came in, I know from my own personal perspective, I left the college system and had the opportunity to move to work with Weyerhaeuser in the startup of the paper machine. So I left it in the capable hands of people like Mel Kernitsky, Dale Dooley, David Cripp. And a board at that time, I'm not sure who the chairman were, could have been Merdini Creed. Yeah, so they were in capable hands. I know it was a difficult time. People like me and a lot of the staff struggled with the fact that we had a community-based board. And even though in 1974 the board was sort of, the government appointed 3 members and the community still could appoint 4, this sort of was doing away with that whole college board system and was putting everything under SIAST and under government, from I'm giving you a personal biased perspective, government control, and didn't sit well with people, and people were nervous as to what that impact might be. So there were difficult times. For sure, the question was, did university programming belong at the Technical Institute? I can tell you that Prince Albert, because of the strength we had in the community and because of the direction that we were given, people were very committed to university programming. People at SIAST at the time really weren't that committed to it. They thought we should be focused more on adult training and pre-employment training. And so there were some strains in the system, I could tell you. I'm not sure, is there a 1989 slide on there? No. Okay, so please go back. So in 1989, I had the good fortune and had the support of a fellow by the name of Jack Matheson, who was the board member for SIAST from Prince Albert. I had his support and his invitation to become the principal of Woodland. Against my wife's best wishes, I left Weyerhaeuser and came to be the principal for about a year and a half. And then had a premature retirement. Anyways, Prince Albert, because of the kind of people that we were, and I'd say aggressive when it came to dealing with university and the department, they labeled us as the Prince Albert Mafia. And the big reason was that we were able to secure a facility when the government had actually stated college systems would not have bricks and mortar. They would be in other facilities within communities. Well, lo and behold, Prince Albert managed to have this facility built. And so we had a bit of a reputation, and so there was pressure to move us in a certain direction. And of course, being the kind of, we're not stubborn or anything like that, we kind of pushed in another way. And so in 1989, we made a very conscious effort to expand university programming at Prince Albert. And so there were enough dollars coming into the system and enough of a slush fund that we could support a coordinator, we could support a science program, we could support expanding the program. And that's what in actual fact happened against the wishes of SIAST. And I can tell you that in 1990, like I said, I had the good fortune to move on elsewhere, try to provide talent to someplace else, and the system was taken over by David Cripp and my good friend, I hope, Dale Dooley. Here you are, take this banana bowl. Connie's squishy, I told you.
You have to put it by your mouth.
Yes. I have a long nose, I can't get it close enough.
See, he still doesn't listen to directions.
His voice carries fine.
Anyway.
It's for our YouTube audience.
I have a couple of apologies to make. I don't know if this is working or not.
You have
Is
to
it?
put it right by your mouth.
Well, I'm gonna talk with them.
Oh, yeah.
You can see why the government had trouble with these.
I have a story, no, I won't.
So I haven't made a presentation in 22 years, and I'm scared you know whatless. Also,
Oh, you're okay, Dave.
yeah. Peter had documents and then people to refer to and look at, and for the part of the presentation and part of the document that I wrote, it's just anecdotal. Basically, my memories of how things were. I tried to remain factual, as unbiased as possible, which is almost impossible for me, but at any rate.
I agree.
It's not based in any kind of research. It's just my experience with the university program. So, significant factors that influenced the program and its growth. The number one factor in my opinion, I mean there are many things, but the number one factor in my opinion was the appointment of David Cripp in 1980 as university coordinator. We could speculate that had it been Peter or Mel or me, or Dennis, or Connie, or a number of other people, the university program may have been bigger and better and juicier and whatever. But the very fact of the matter is that there was one person who was the university coordinator for 18 years, and that was David Kirk. And he threw every ounce of his energy and commitment to developing the university program. Under the direction and support of Mel and Peter, he had a vision, and he wasn't prepared to accept a university program that was just a class here or there, what the university was prepared to offer out of extension. And initially, and this was before my involvement in the university program, the Extension Division had personnel who were not at all interested in doing off-campus stuff. I mean, they were forced to because requests were coming in, but it was a pain in the behind for them to do that sort of thing. But David insisted, and then there was a change at the Extension Division, and Bob Cram came on as the director of off-campus credit degree studies. And David was able to get more and more courses approved. He moved into the sciences, and he wanted to have available to people in the Prince Albert area, whether they were adults or high school students, graduated, what could be viewed as a first-year university program, which you could take here. You could take it in Prince Albert and then go directly to the university in Saskatoon and not miss a beat. But you would do it here in smaller classes. He provided or made arrangements for tutorial services. He sought out, recruited, advocated to have many, many local instructors approved, which gave the program a local flair, and it grew and it flourished. Initially, it was people like teachers who wanted to get a second degree that would take courses, adults taking maybe 1 or 2 classes. And then in 1989, the university designated, because our program had grown and because we had a pretty representative first year, the College of Arts and Science and the university approved us as the first official off-campus arts and science site. So that made a big difference. Now students could apply and be accepted into the College of Arts and Science and take the classes in PA. Before, they could take all those same classes, but they were what we referred to as unclassified students. So then they could complete their year, but they would have to apply to arts and science again. So another application to the university. You had to meet the promotional average. There's always, as we all know, sometimes first-year students don't get high averages, and they need to learn to be students. But as long as they were, once they could be in the College of Arts and Science, as long as they met the promotional average, which was lower than the transfer average, they could go directly to Saskatoon and pursue their university career. David put all of that together, and it wasn't easy. There was lots of resistance. He also negotiated, once SIAST came into effect, he negotiated that we were able to use one of their labs, that he got the bookstore manager to provide bookstore services, which was a big factor. I can talk about instances where prior to that, professors would haul books up and sell them in the classrooms. And then when students forgot their checks and maybe they didn't have the money for that, then Chris Nemish would be selling textbooks at the front desk. And they would be selling textbooks out of his office. And it was a pain. But with the creation of SIAST and the bookstore and David convincing the bookstore manager that it would be a good idea to sell the university books, there might be some revenue to be had by doing that. That was a service that was provided. We also negotiated with the librarian to put a section, to dedicate a section of the library to the university program, and Rob O'Neill was fantastic at that, and every year he would purchase a few books that would relate specifically to the university program. We also got access to recreation, which we would never have had before. So I had a role to play eventually in the university program. But David Cripp is the fellow who put that program together, who made it possible, and I guess if you wanted to go stretch, maybe who was responsible for there actually being a university campus here in Prince Albert now. It may never have happened had he not put the energy that he put in and developed the program that he developed. In 1987, so up till 1987, when our facility down on 10th Avenue expanded, most of the university programming happened in the evening. It happened at Carleton, previous to that Tech. Sometimes there were a few evening classes that were offered down at our St. Pat's facility. But when we expanded, the design of the facility was designed with the university program in mind, classrooms dedicated to it. So now we could go to a daytime program. And that had a huge influence on graduating high school students. They weren't happy with just taking evening courses, so they would choose oftentimes to go to Saskatoon rather than coming to a program that was here, that was cheaper, smaller classes, that was supportive. And once we went to daytime programming, the program switched from being adults in the evening or students who were in the human justice social work program taking classes through the U of S to satisfy the arts requirements, to being a program where primarily the students were high school graduates from Carleton, St. Mary's, surrounding high schools. And the numbers remain approximately the same. There were years when they were down, years that they were up. The creation of SIAST, although it wasn't popular in terms of the fact that it took over the community college, also provided some enhancements for the university program. Community colleges were always underfunded, notoriously, everywhere in the province, not just here in Prince Albert. We were probably one of the better funded community colleges.
Bookkeeping.
When SIAST came in, it was a big government initiative. And they wanted to make sure that every aspect of it was pretty well funded. And it was for, I would say, 5-6 years, and then it started to change, and there were issues. But it guaranteed funds for the academic center, which is what the college became. And as a result, it covered administrative, my position when I was involved, clerical positions, David's position, all of those funds were guaranteed. The courses, the classes were never ever covered by SIAST or by provincial government funds. It was always, you had to have enough tuitions, there had to be excess tuitions to cover any expenses like travel and all of that sort of thing of instructors, or all the tutorial services that David put in place to support the sciences and the writing center. So we had to make sure that the classes that we offered were relevant to the students, were popular, that people wanted to take them, or else if the tuitions were down, finances were down, we could be in difficulty. And when SIAST came, of course, the bookstore came, the library came, and recreation came. None of those things would have been available just through the community college model. In terms of the support services that David put in place, I talk about tutorial services. He was responsible for bringing on science programs, and initially, all of the science instructors would come up from Saskatoon. So, you drive for an hour and a half, you present your lectures, it's time to go home. Maybe it's 10 o'clock at night already, or regardless, maybe you teach from 1 till 4, and you've got to get back to Saskatoon so you can have a meal and then maybe go and teach in the evening. So there wasn't a lot of support outside of just straight lecturing for students. And David recognized that some of the math and science students would benefit from having tutorial assistants. It had to be paid for somehow, and that was by utilizing excess tuitions. So as Peter had mentioned, I think he mentioned before, the model was that the first 15 tuitions went to the university. And that was to cover their expenses, whatever expenses they had beyond just the sessional lecture. Anything above 15 tuitions per class was returned at the end of the year in a reconciliation process to SIAST, to the college to begin with.
Dale, I start off by saying 12. It was 12 to start with, but in 1974, when the government negotiated a contract with the university, that number was moved up to 15. So there's
And that 1974 agreement still stands.
yeah, still stands.
Really?
Yeah, we can't take it to government agreement.
Okay, sorry, Dale.
No, that's fine. So David decided, with Mel's support, that some of these excess tuitions, rather than have them go to SIAST general coffers, he would use them to provide support for students. So he was able to enhance Joanne Marchand's, she was the biology lab instructor. He was able to get her to do tutoring to assist biology students. And he did some math and science tutoring, and then we were fortunate enough, he didn't do it himself, I'm sorry, he had somebody doing it, but then we were fortunate enough to be able to hire Shirley Barlow, and David established a full-time math and science tutorial program. It was expensive. It ate up some of those tuitions that I'm sure SIAST would have preferred went to SIAST, but they were supporting students. So those tutorial assistants, smaller classes, local instructors dedicated to the program and to the students, made the program very, very favorable and very, very popular with students from the high schools in the surrounding areas and other students in the community. The third person who was involved was Rita Matlock. She was the English sessional. And she proposed to David that there was a need for a writing center for tutorial assistance to students so that they could become better and more effective writers. And so David supported that. And we had the writing center, and Rita, who initially was a bit of a hard ass in terms of being a professor. And as she got more and more exposure to the Prince Albert model, to the Prince Albert students, to the Prince Albert services, and to working with students in the writing center, became a very, very effective, not only English instructor, but student support individual. And she became a very, very important part of our program. I think I need to wrap this up. I guess I'll just speak kind of briefly about my involvement in the program. I joined the college in 1979, and I did a variety of different things. And then I got the opportunity in 1987 to become a counselor in the Counseling Information Center, which turned out to be, not just because of me, but the fact that the Counseling Information Center was there and was designed into the expansion of the community college, became a very, very effective resource for the community, but also for the university program. I guess this could be embarrassing, but at any rate, Peter mentioned that we did a videotape. So there was a lady who worked for SIAST, and her daughter was looking at, her daughter was at Carleton, was looking at starting university. The lady's name was Pat McCall. And when she and her daughter sought out guidance and advice at Carleton about the university program here in PA, she was discouraged from taking it. She was told that with what the goals that she had in mind, that she would be better off to go directly to Saskatoon. And so Pat came to me and said, you know, there are misconceptions out in the community about the university program. And she worked in audio and visual, and she had talked to several people there, and they came up with the idea that it would be, because we were part of SIAST, it'd be a good idea to put together a videotape that would promote the program, that we could send out to all the high schools in the surrounding areas. And so we got together, Pete McConey, Visha Lato, and I, we put together a tape, and we sent it out to a lot of the different high schools in the area. And it was used, and it did promote the program. And as a result of us being exposed in that way, we started being invited to student parent information sessions in the evening at the high schools, and we were able to clear up misconceptions about the program. Misconceptions like our science labs didn't meet the requirements of the university, so if you took biology or chemistry in Prince Albert, you wouldn't get full credit at the university. My guess is that what happened was somebody took some child, some teenager, took a biology or a chemistry class, failed the lab, so they didn't get credit for the class, and suggested that our program wasn't good enough. I mean, it was full credit. I can't think of any other reason that rumor would get out there. So I started sort of as career counselor, and then as the university program grew and more people found out that I knew a little bit about the university program and student advising and that sort of thing, my role grew basically into the university program counselor. So from about 1990 till I retired in 2004, that was my primary responsibility. I had students who were thinking of going to university from all of the surrounding high schools and their parents come and meet with me looking at the program. And then we had current students, and they needed assistance with registration, with all kinds of student advice. And then they were going on to Saskatoon, and so I would advise them on classes that they could take, majors they could pursue, that sort of thing. And often students who were going into their third year, so they had done their second year in Saskatoon, came back to work here in the summer, would come back and meet with me for advice. So I guess I got to be a bit of an expert and had a bit of a reputation. Enough about that. Can we go to the slide that shows the proposed classes? So, we've been talking about the program, but how do you envision that? I mean, what was it? Was it 5 classes? Was it 150 classes? Was it all English and psych? What was the program like? So these slides give you some indication, there are 3 of them, give you some indication of what was offered. Now this was, it says proposed, but that's what would have gone into the off-campus calendar. And it shows classes that would have been available here. So if you look in the, there's the one section with C15, CV or whatever. If it's a V, it's televised. The university started to do televised classes. If it's a C, that's a face-to-face, in-class, regular type of program. And you can see the variety.
There's 2 more of these.
Yeah, the variety of courses that were offered.
All the good early English.
So it was a pretty substantial program. I have something written here that I have to refer to if I can find it.
So by the looks of it, you could complete your first year with all your credits going to upper.
Oh, easily, without question, in
Yeah,
fact.
for arts and science with just
In
getting
fact-
your electives out of the way, basically.
Even commerce or
Yeah.
agriculture, a lot of them,
Yeah.
you could do first year because.
I'm just remembering my own class lesson, it's like, oh, that was first year, that was first year,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was first year. I did it at St. Pete's, so I did it in
Yeah.
extension
Yes.
too.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah. And the 2 programs were somewhat similar,
Yeah.
actually.
yeah.
In fact, for art students, fine art students, some of them almost completed their degrees here because we offered 3rd and 4th level classes. It was a special arrangement, and we were only able to do that because of the instructor that we had. He was an exceptional art instructor and was flexible in terms of how he would put the class together. Anyway, if you take a look, having looked at that list, what was offered was 64 individual classes, and 55 of them were face-to-face. So it was a large, because by this time, in Melfort, North Battleford, and some of those areas, the majority of the classes were televised. And they didn't have the scope of classes that we had here. I don't know, I think I should wrap it up. I think that, yes,
In the 80s, there was a whole bunch of voc tech classes for those of us who were
Yes.
tradespeople who could
Yeah.
then get certification to teach. So what was the impetus for that?
what was the impetus for that?
Was it because SIAST was coming, or why were there so many voc tech classes at that
Yeah,
time?
it was specifically that,
Yeah,
because of SIAST,
No.
yeah.
well, and I mean,
And that was the U of R.
No.
no.
No, it was the U of S.
That was
Oh, it was
UMass, yeah.
Okay.
No, it was, yeah, it was because SIAST was coming, except nobody knew that it was SIAST that was coming.
But they went into the 90s because
Yeah.
I taught a couple of those, and
Yeah.
it was like
But,
somewhere in the 90s.
But was that not linked to some of those instructors that were apprentice, journeyman
Yeah,
carpenters?
yeah,
Yeah.
SIAST, that's why SIAST,
Yeah.
people teaching.
But it was also
those-
carpentry folks that they needed instructors in their program, and they needed people with
There was, all-
journeyman qualifications. and
so it was to support the comprehensive high schools, the instructors that were going in there, but also in anticipation of Prince Albert Technical Institute. Because under the NDP, it was going to be the Prince Albert Technical Institute, and then, I mean, the conservatives came, but it was still, when it first opened up, it was the Prince Albert Technical Institute. And then it had a variety of different names, and then in 1988, so
Almost Northern Institute of Technology, nitwits, no nit.
So initially, the Technical Institute was not SIAST. Okay, the college, the Technical Institute was a Technical Institute. And then they were combined by legislation in 1988. And it was in anticipation of all of those things happening that those courses were offered.
Still have some of the basics.
Yes,
Compared to then, which was, you said 63 classes were offered?
64, yeah.
64. What is it today?
Rob?
Turn to the guy behind the stage.
Okay, well, any other year, but this, we won't talk about this year because this was a freak year, but it's 45 to 50-ish, and this is just arts and science I'm talking about. This year, there was huge cutbacks, but that was a blip, and we're not gonna talk about it because we years. We're not talking about that, but we pitched about this.
Yes.
But it's been pretty much, you know, that's the standard we still use, so for this year. That doesn't include, because we have all 4 years of nursing, and that's over half of our people, so that's 200 and some students. Yeah, so it's pretty much status quo in terms of arts and science courses of what they built.
And that basically is a reflection of, from about 1990, and from what Rob is saying, through to about 2025. Our granddaughter took her first year here of a Bachelor of Science program in 2019, 2020. And she took all face-to-face classes. And she took biology, chemistry, physics. She didn't take math. She already had math and English from Carleton, but she took a women's and gender studies, nutrition, and psychology, and I think a stats course. So, you know, very similar. And I don't know what the balance was. I mean, if there were more televised classes as it progressed, and, you know, Rob.
Yeah, no, and televised kind of died out, so it's pretty much became face, but it was all what was established there. And can I just take 90 seconds? Because Dale's not giving himself accolades, because I want to tell you that I wouldn't be here without that man. And I will say this just, you know, humbly, because,
Neither would I.
you know, as a high school student, so I graduated in '88 and I barely graduated because my major in high school was hanging out with Mr. Marks having coffee and chain smoking, and I didn't care about school. And then I kind of thought, you know, nobody in my family went to school, and I wanted to, but I didn't think I'd have the confidence to, so I went down, met with that man sometime in '88, I think. Started here in '89, and I remember Bob Cram was working in recruitment then, so he came and did the application. He was saying, no, you can do this. It was those two who did that. But it took some time to launch, right? So I remember in my first year, and I thought, okay, maybe I get this, maybe I can do this. But it was Dale. I remember I was going to drop a class, so I just thought, well, I don't show up anymore. Like a bit like high school, they'll, you know, whatever. And I remember him tracking me down and saying, you're going to get a NP and a 33% or whatever if you don't. I'm like, oh, but it's because of these people who had eyes and actually, like, you know, lifted us up. So anyway, long story short, so I would not have. I would, if I went to Saskatoon, I would have crashed and burned, right? And so it's because of the smaller classes and the support. So blah 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 blah. I did 2 years actually, or a year and a half-ish, and go to Saskatoon. Came back because I couldn't get classes in Saskatoon sometimes, so I did a couple of 300 sociology level classes in PA because I couldn't get them in Saskatoon. So you come back and class sizes were small. Fast forward again. As a grad student, yeah, Dale hired me to be working the writing center with Rita, and that really is a jewel in the crown of the university that nobody acknowledges, because main campus did not have a writing center at that time, and that didn't get established till after they stole all of Rita's ideas. They really did, and so it was, you know, Rita retired from the writing center on March 13th. So, and that was like one of the saddest days of my life because she was so awesome. But I think she might still teach for us. But it's because of Dale and what he built that, for my part, I mean, but you need to take the credit for the lives you shaped there. And I remember, so then I ended up getting a job at SIFC, but I remember saying to my wife one day, like, I want to be Dale Dooley. He knows everything, and he can do everything, and I want that job, and he'll never retire, and I'll go to a SIAST person, and blah, 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 anyway. Until one night at 3 in the morning, I came home from somewhere, and I'm reading the Herald, and I see this ad, and I'm like, oh my God, the university's taking over, right? So, apply for it. So, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be able to job. Yeah. I didn't know that SIAST, there was bad blood settled between the university and SIAST. So I remember thinking, this is gonna be the big kumbaya thing. And I walked in my first day in the summer, and Sharon Mackay's at the front desk, and she's like, I don't know if you have a telephone that cancels your classroom bookings, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't even have an assistant, and I don't think the phone's gonna work. And I was like, what did I just do? Because I just actually got tenure at SIFC a month before, and then I quit it to do this. I'm like, what do they do? But because of that network of people who are in this room, and everybody you folks have mentioned, everybody, like fights are among the big people. And I remember sitting in a meeting going, blah, 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 we're gonna charge you this, and da, 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 da. I remember Al Scogey just whispering, don't react, well, they'll fight it out, we'll make this work. And it did. So all those supports that were in place helped foster what we did, and we were there till COVID, and I gotta admit, like, I left there kicking and screaming, because I'm like, this is the best, most collaborative place to work, and that's the thing that the community college set up, because you had UBAR down the hall, you had Connie there, and later Laura to say, hey, we had basic ed, so if you needed a high school class, and, university doesn't work out, go next door, talk to them about a trade. We had everything. You could go get your hair cut on your coffee break. It was wonderful. So I just didn't want, I'll throw in from what these folks built. So I have 4 kids, right? And so, and I graduated with 50 grand of student loan debt, and that took 11 horrible years and a side job to pay off. I have 4 kids, and because of what they built, I have a nurse and a teacher who graduated in PA who did not have to leave PA, permanent contracts this year. I have a 3rd-year nursing student and a son who's starting in the fall. And so I've got 4 kids. They did not incur any debt, and that's because of what this is built. So this is what these ideas that grew out then, like, that's meaningful, and that's huge. I couldn't have sent 4 kids to Saskatoon like that. Wouldn't have worked. So like, yeah, kudos to you, and yeah. So don't take credit. You have been a perfect, amazing role model for post-second STEM.
Dale, I have to jump in. What we heard today was how individuals, yes, a great movement happened, and we benefited as a city, but unique individuals had an awful lot of play in it. And well, I really appreciated hearing those names and those stories and those candid comments that were made. But that type of individual carried on with him. Because I wanted to take an audit class in history, and it was being offered here. I went down, and I was told I had to register through the university in Saskatoon. I went through hell of 14 hours trying to register with those guys. I finally got into the class. Next year there's a class comes up I think I'm interested in. I went down and talked to him again, and he said, yeah. I said, the registration process is quite a deal. He said, just go up to the prof and ask him if you can sit in. The same sort of concept.
Yeah.
And I will say his last day of that class, all of a sudden I hear everybody clapping, and I'm like, well, do they have somebody? But it was because it was 20th century history, so he lived it all.
Here you are.
I would be remiss though if we ended this without thanking some other people as well. And in a lot of organizations like us, some of us are at the forefront and we get a lot of accolades. And we get a lot of criticism, of course. But you have people who work behind the scenes who just do a lot of work. And I'm thinking of people like Gordon White, who move tables and chairs on a moment's notice. What's his name, Hurd, Mike Hurd, was the same thing, you know, you phone them at any point in time, day or night, they would be hauling whatever it was necessary to make that university class a success. You had clerical support people who were just simply outstanding, and I mean, we had the Enid Taggarts of the world, but you also had, as best as my memory is, you had Chris Nemish, who I mentioned, you know, really just, we tried to compensate her, but our system didn't allow it, so she just did, out of the good graciousness of her heart, she did a lot of things. And you had John Ward, and you had Sherry Dickey at nights at Tech, and you had Diane Banner, you had Wendy Vermette, and you had Lynn Sawchuk. Some of these are accounting people, and we needed them because the way we kept books, we needed to know that at least there was some, we were spending money that we actually had. So, and you had Diane McDonald, and you had Maureen Sawchuk, and you had Maureen, I think she's now Blake. Had her, and you had Shirley Swain, I think, who's around here as well, and Monique, and I'm trying to remember Monique's name. Okay, so there were people like that were behind the scenes, and you had board members, like board chairs, who were really committed to the thing, like Colin Belt and Jean Zawada, and of course Merdine McCreath, and you had Graham Boyd as well, and then of course had Jack Matheson representing Prince Albert very adequately on the SIAST board. So there were people like that behind the scene. You had teachers who were teaching. I mean, I see Danny McClellan here, and I see Kim Warnick here, and Dennis Rives here. They were all people who were in the system, who walked the talk, and who really made it easy to be in a management position at that college. And actually was considered not only a pleasure, but a privilege. And just to have a soft spot in my heart for each and every one of you. So, thank you. And Rob, thank you for throwing out the challenge. We have a 20-page document for you.
I would just like to add, though, I mean, as a college, we were one of, well, I would say the best college. We were in Saskatchewan.
Absolutely.
But, you know, we always took credit for the university program. I mean, we saw it as our program. But we need to remember, we had a huge partner in that program, that was the University of Saskatchewan. So they need credit. And I mean, the instructors, professors were not Magnum professors, they were University of Saskatchewan professors. The Extension Division, Bob Cram, Sherry Spooner, Grace Milashenko, people like that, Sandra Ritchie, played a huge role in providing that service. The one lady that I need to mention, and I meant to, I just got lost in my notes, was with the College of Arts and Science, Donna Gillicrelli. I mean, she was such a fantastic individual in support to me, in support to students. It was just phenomenal. So the university played a huge role, and they need a lot of credit. But the college hadn't started it, hadn't spearheaded it. David had sort of accepted, no, you can't have science classes. Oh, okay, so we'll just have English, Psych, and Sociology then. You know, that if we hadn't pushed them, they wouldn't have provided the program that they ended up providing. And maybe there wouldn't be a university campus in PA. Maybe there would be. I remember going to a meeting in Saskatoon with the Dean of Nursing. Now this is years and years ago. The Dean was Dean Brown. She's since retired. And, you know, talking about, like, why couldn't we offer some nursing courses in PA and, you know, maybe eventually get it going in, you know, a degree program. And she couldn't even see one U of S nursing course being offered off campus. Impossible. You can't offer them off campus. That was the attitude. David fought against that. Bob Cram fought against that. Lots of the department heads had no interest in offering science classes. You can't offer a reasonable chemistry class in PA. It has to be in Saskatoon. So a lot of persistence was required. and out of the extension division of the university as well. And I've taken up enough of your time.
One last thing. I just had a flashback moment. So,
They're bummed to get
mine
included.
we had, in terms of the association and council, it really had an amalgamation of people from all walks of life and who provided input into the college program and its direction. And I know in terms of the council, the people that were using our services, two women stand out in my mind as really people who took it upon themselves to provide us with direction. One was Rose Boyer from the Indian Media Society, and the other one was Lois Fiddler. And so they really made us aware of the needs of Métis and Treaty Indian, and they weren't treaty, but they really made it a point for us to understand what their needs were, and were instrumental in moving towards people like, towards GDI and that kind of thing. You had Chief Harry Cook, I know he was chief of the Launch Band, same kind of thing. So we tried to bring those kind of people into our system, and they had a voice in our system. And it was, like I said, it was remarkable to have that many people from that many walks of life, not only from the city of Prince Albert and the arts department and all that kind of thing, but what support that was, and it's an amazing adventure it has been. So, Bob, it's all yours. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Robin, you behave.